ready for another tip? Today is Friday. So, have you ever wondered why we have a policy at Maximum One Community that the broker is the holder of the earnest money? So, we came up with that policy within the first year of opening our franchise when we heard some things that were very disheartening about attorneys holding earnest money. Now, keep in mind, this is not a dig at all against our attorneys, okay? Hartman Law, I have no problem with, actually. They do all the things that are, that I would do. But we had some problems where let's see, one was a buyer who had to wait 6 weeks to get her earnest money back because they just, that wasn't the top of mind business thing to do. And the attorney took 6 weeks to get her earnest money back to her. Another one, we were representing a client, and the attorney wanted to charge fees out of the earnest money for administrative costs and time that he held it. And so that was another fight. And so we just decided, you know what, as a broker, it's real easy for us to look at the contract and to make a determination who gets the earnest money back. Most times, like I would say 98% of the time, that's a super easy thing to answer. And we do it quickly, and we have good systems that are set up to do that. So our trust account is, overseen not just by me and Morgan, but also by a CPA. So, that's kind of nice to have those checks and balances. So, as a representative of a buyer, like as a broker for a buyer, a broker for a seller, I feel a lot more comfortable that I'm taking care of our client when we hold the earnest money. Now, here's a situation that I was made aware of within the last few years that I didn't even know. If you are an attorney and you're holding the earnest money on a cash transaction, who do you represent? So most of the time, the attorney represents a lender. They don't represent the buyer or the seller, so they are somewhat a neutral, kind of a neutral third party. But if they are holding it in a cash transaction, they actually are not able to just cut a check. So it has to go through arbitration because it's considered a conflict of interest because they represent the buyer. So now your buyer could be waiting. So let's say you have a cash transaction for $300,000. They put in $5,000 earnest money, and the deal falls through. And earnest money is supposed to go back to the buyer according to what was signed off on the termination and release of earnest money. And then they're waiting and they're waiting, and they need that $5,000 to go put on another piece of property. And they may not use the same closing attorney. Now you're waiting and waiting for that to be arbitrated before it comes back to them. Whereas a broker like myself, it's like, okay, there's the termination. Here's what it says. It goes back to the buyer. The branch manager writes a check. It goes right back. In fact, you could even pick it up as an agent at our office to take it to your client. That's how quick it can happen within just a number of days, if that. The other point to this is that the attorneys were not made a part of the contract in any way, shape, or form prior to the time that we got F510s and F511s, and that's why those were created. So it actually tied the attorney into the transaction as the holder of the earnest money. A lot of attorneys don't want to hold it. They will because they want to be your closing attorney and they want to do what you're requesting. And they have trust funds. They have a trust account, obviously. So, but that's extra for them to do. Now, I will tell you on the flip side, if you've ever been with a broker that said, we don't hold earnest money, it goes always to the attorney. We don't want to deal with it. The reason for that is because many times there's a lot of accounting that has to take place. And if I, as a broker, gave earnest money to the wrong party and misinterpreted the contract as to where that money goes, I could be considered and deemed incompetent And that kind of would help me lose my license. So there are brokers that just don't want to deal with that, and that's fine, and that's their way of doing business. I feel like for me, being able to hold the earnest money and put the earnest money back into the client's hands in a quick manner is a service to our buyers and our sellers. So that's the reason for the policy, if you've ever wondered. And yes, it is a policy. Of course, if you're representing a seller and the buyer's agent comes along and she wants it to be held, in the closing attorney's office, there's not much we can do. Although we can offer, hey, if your broker doesn't hold the earnest money, it might be a quicker turnaround if you let us hold it. And named as the holder, we're the ones who have to give notice if they don't give it in time. We're the ones who have to do a 10-day letter if people don't agree. So there's a lot more work involved on it, on the broker's end, but I feel like it's worth it for our clients. So if you have any more questions, feel free to call me. You know my number, and I'll talk to you soon. Have a great day and a great weekend.